The crystal towers of Zephyria reached toward the purple sky like giant fingers made of light. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of his transport ship, watching the alien world grow larger as they approached. His hands were steady, but his heart beat fast. 3 years of war had brought him to this moment. Today, he would either help make peace or watch everything fall apart. The ship landed with a soft thud on the crystal platform. Jake stepped out, wearing his best uniform. The air smelled strange, like metal and flowers mixed together. Around him, tall alien figures moved like living shadows. These were the Zephyrians, beings made of pure energy wrapped in bodies that looked almost human but glowed with inner light. 2 guards escorted Jake through corridors that sparkled with every color he could imagine. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with gentle light that followed their footsteps. Everything here was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The throne room was huge. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above, while the floor was made of clear crystal that showed swirling colors beneath. At the far end sat King Vorak on a throne that looked like it was carved from a single massive diamond. The king was 12 feet tall, his body crackling with blue and white energy. His eyes burned like tiny stars. "So," King Vorak's voice boomed across the room, "the humans send me their little captain to beg for peace." Jake walked forward, his boots clicking on the crystal floor. He had practiced this moment 100 times. "Your Majesty, I come not to beg, but to find a way for our peoples to stop killing each other." The king laughed, a sound like thunder, rolling across mountains. "You humans are amusing. You have fought us for 3 years and lost every major battle. Your ships are fast, yes, but we are stronger, much stronger." Jake nodded. "That's true. We cannot match your power, but we can match your determination. This war will drag on for decades if we don't find another way." Other Zephyrians filled the room, their bodies glowing in different colors. Jake could feel their eyes on him, studying him like he was some strange animal. He stood straight and tried to look confident, even though he felt very small in this place of giants. King Vorak leaned forward on his throne. "I have an offer for you, little human. A way to end this war that will satisfy both our peoples." "I'm listening," Jake said. "Marriage," the king said, and his smile was not kind. "A union between our royal family and yours." Jake blinked. He had expected many things, but not this. "Marriage?" "Yes, you will marry my youngest daughter, Princess Lyra." The king's smile grew wider. "This will bind our peoples in peace. Your Earth Federation will have a royal connection to our empire." The other Zephyrians began to whisper among themselves. Some of them were trying not to laugh. Jake could see it in their glowing eyes. Something was wrong with this offer. "Where is the princess?" Jake asked. King Vorak waved his hand. "She will be brought shortly. But first, let me tell you about your bride-to-be." The king's voice took on a mocking tone. "Princess Lyra is beautiful, as all our women are. She has lived for 200 of your years, which makes her quite young by our standards. She has been educated in the finest arts and sciences of our civilization." "She sounds wonderful," Jake said carefully. "Oh, but I haven't told you the best part." King Vorak's laughter filled the room again. "She is barren, completely unable to bear children. Our greatest healers have examined her for decades. She will never produce an heir." Now Jake understood why the other Zephyrians were smiling. In their culture, a woman who could not have children was worthless. The king was offering him damaged goods and calling it a generous peace treaty. "In our society," the king continued, "bloodline is everything. A woman who cannot continue the family line has no value. I am being incredibly generous, giving you a princess at all, even a broken one." The throne room doors opened with a sound like wind chimes. A figure walked in, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. Princess Lyra was indeed beautiful. She was tall like all her people, but more slender. Her skin glowed with soft silver light, and her hair moved like liquid starlight. But it was her eyes that caught his attention. They were deep purple, like the Zephyrian sky, and they held such sadness that Jake felt his heart break, a little just looking at her. She walked to the center of the room and bowed to her father, then turned to Jake. When she spoke, her voice was like music, but quiet and tired. "Captain Morrison," she said, "my father has told you about me, about what I cannot do. I understand if you wish to refuse this marriage. No one would blame you for not wanting someone who is ... incomplete." Jake looked at her for a long moment. Around them, the court waited for his answer. King Vorak was still smiling, sure that Jake would find some polite way to refuse and leave them to continue their war. But Jake had grown up on Earth, where people were valued for who they were, not just what they could produce. He had seen women lead armies, heal the sick, build starships, and explore new worlds. The idea that this intelligent, beautiful woman was worthless because she couldn't have children made him angry. He stepped forward and took Lyra's hand. Her skin was warm and tingly with energy. "Princess Lyra," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I would be honored to marry you." The room went completely silent. Even King Vorak stopped smiling. "I accept this marriage," Jake continued, "not as a political necessity, but because I can see that you are a person of worth and dignity. On Earth, we measure people by their character, their intelligence, their kindness, not by their ability to bear children." Lyra's purple eyes widened in shock. No one had ever spoken about her this way before. King Vorak recovered from his surprise and began laughing again. But this time, the laughter was crueler. "How wonderfully foolish. The humans accept my broken daughter and think they have won something valuable. This is better than I hoped." But Jake was looking at Lyra, and she was looking back at him. In her eyes, he saw hope beginning to grow, where there had only been sadness before. "When do we begin the ceremony?" Jake asked. 6 months had passed since the wedding ceremony. Jake Morrison looked out the window of their shared home and watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. The habitat was a strange but beautiful place, built where the human settlement met the edge of Zephyrian territory. Half of it was designed for human needs, with regular furniture and Earth-style rooms. The other half was made for Lyra, with crystal formations that helped her energy flow properly, and spaces filled with the kind of light her people needed. Lyra sat in the morning light, her silver skin glowing softly as she absorbed the energy. She had been quiet lately, more than usual. Jake knew she was struggling with being caught between two worlds. The Zephyrians still saw her as the broken daughter who had been given away. The humans in the settlement were polite to her, but they kept their distance. They didn't understand her, and what people don't understand, they often fear. "Good morning," Jake said, sitting down beside her on the crystal bench. "Good morning, Jake," she replied, but her voice was sad. "You're thinking about something heavy again." Lyra nodded. "I received a message from my sister yesterday. She wanted to know if I was happy being married to a human. But the way she asked it, she was really asking if I was sorry for bringing shame to our family." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that you treat me with more kindness than anyone in our court ever did." Lyra turned to look at him. "That's true, you know. In 6 months, you have never once made me feel broken or worthless." "Because you're not broken or worthless," Jake said firmly. "You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. Human or Zephyrian." It was true. In the months they had lived together, Jake had discovered that Lyra was brilliant. She could solve problems that stumped both human engineers and Zephyrian technicians. Just last week, his communication device had stopped working completely. The human repair team said it would take days to fix, and they would need to order parts from Earth. Had looked at it for 5 minutes, then touched it with her glowing fingers. The device had come back to life, but it was working better than it ever had before. When the repair team examined it later, they couldn't understand what she had done. The internal components had been changed in ways that shouldn't have been. Possible. Dr. Parker wants to see you again today, Jake said. She says the tests from last week were very interesting. Dr. Helen Parker was the chief medical officer for the human settlement. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had become fascinated with Zephyrian biology. She was also one of the few humans who treated Lyra with genuine respect and curiosity rather than fear. I like Dr. Parker, Lyra said. She asks questions because she wants to understand, not because she thinks something is wrong with me. An hour later, they walked through the human settlement toward the medical center. People stopped their conversations to stare at Lyra as she passed. Her tall, glowing form was impossible to ignore. Some looked curious, others worried. A few? Children peeked out from behind their parents, eyes wide with wonder. They're not used to seeing Zephyrians up close, Jake explained quietly. I know, Lyra said. Most of my people would react the same way to humans. We're both strange to each other. Dr. Parker's office was filled with screens showing complex data and charts. She looked up when they entered, her eyes bright with excitement. Lyra, I'm so glad you're here. The results from your blood work are fascinating. Fascinating good or fascinating bad? Lyra asked, sitting down carefully in the chair designed for her larger frame. Fascinating amazing, Dr. Parker said. Your energy patterns are completely different from the other Zephyrian samples we've studied. Most of your people have very stable, predictable energy signatures. Yours is complex and constantly changing. She pulled up a chart on her screen. Look at this. A normal Zephyrian energy reading looks like a steady wave. Yours looks like a symphony. Jake studied the patterns. He wasn't a scientist, but even he could see the difference. Where other readings showed simple, repeating waves, Lyra's showed intricate, dancing patterns that seemed almost alive. What does it mean? Jake asked. I'm not sure yet, Dr. Parker admitted. But I think it might explain why you've been able to interface with our technology so easily. Your energy is more adaptable, more flexible than typical Zephyrian patterns. Lyra was quiet for a moment. My tutors always said I was unstable. That? My energy couldn't settle into proper patterns the way it should. They were wrong, Dr. Parker said firmly. You're not unstable. You're evolved. Your energy system is more advanced, not less. After they left the medical center, Jake and Lyra walked through the market area where humans and a few Zephyrians traded goods. Jake noticed how Lyra watched everything with careful attention, studying the way people interacted, the way machines worked, the flow of daily life. You're always learning, he observed. I want to understand both our peoples, she said. If I'm going to be stuck between two worlds, maybe I can find a way to help them understand each other better. That evening, they sat together in their shared living space. Lyra was working on a small device that combined human circuitry with Zephyrian crystal technology. Her fingers moved with precise grace, and tiny sparks of energy flowed from her hands into the components. What are you making? Jake asked. A translator, she said. Something that can convert human speech into the harmonic patterns my people use, and vice versa. Communication is the first step to understanding. Jake watched her work. In the soft light of their home, with her silver hair falling around her face as she concentrated, she was beautiful. But more than that, she was brilliant and kind, and determined to make something good out of their unusual situation. Lyra, he said softly, She looked up from her work. I want you to know something. 6 months ago, I agreed to marry you because it was the right thing to do for peace. But now I'm glad I did for completely different reasons. She set down her tools and turned to face him fully. What reasons? Because you're amazing. Because you make me want to be better than I. Because when I see you working to bridge our two worlds, I think maybe we actually have a chance at real peace. Lyra's glow brightened slightly, which Jake had learned meant she was feeling strong emotions. I never thought anyone would see me as anything but a failure, she said quietly. My whole life, I was the daughter who couldn't fulfill her purpose. But with you, I feel like maybe I can find a new purpose. Jake reached out and took her hand. The energy that flowed between them was warm and comforting. We'll find it together, he said. Outside their window, the lights of the human settlement twinkled alongside the glow of Zephyrian crystal formations. Two different kinds of light, illuminating the same patch of ground. It seemed like a good sign for the future. Dr. Helen Parker stared at the test results on her screen for the third time. The numbers couldn't be right. She ran her fingers through her gray hair and checked the data again. Everything looked the same. Impossible, but the same. She picked up her communication device and called Jake Morrison. Jake, I need you and Lyra to come to the medical center immediately. Something important has come up. Is everything okay? Jake's voice carried worry. Just come quickly, both of you. An hour later, Jake and Lyra sat in Dr. Parker's office. The doctor looked excited, but also nervous, like someone who had discovered something wonderful and terrifying at the same time. I've been studying the blood samples you've both given me over the past few months, Dr. Parker began. I wanted to understand how human and Zephyrian biology might interact, just out of scientific curiosity. And, Jake prompted, and I found something that changes everything we thought we knew. Dr. Parker turned her screen toward them. Lyra, you're not Barren. You never were. Lyra's silver glow flickered. That's impossible. Our best healers examined me for decades. They all said the same thing. They were looking for standard Zephyrian reproductive patterns, Dr. Parker explained. But your biology is different. Your reproductive system requires a specific type of catalyst to function. Something that doesn't exist in Zephyrian genetics. What kind of catalyst? Jake asked. Dr. Parker pulled up another chart. Human genetic material. Specifically, certain proteins that only exist in human DNA. Your unique energy signature, Lyra, seems designed to work with human biology, not Zephyrian. The room fell silent. Jake and Lyra looked at each other, then back at Dr. Parker. Are you saying? Lyra began. I'm saying that a human Zephyrian hybrid might not only be possible, it might be what your body was designed for all along. Jake felt his heart racing. What would that mean? What would a hybrid child be like? I don't know, Dr. Parker admitted. This is completely new territory. But based on your combined genetic patterns, such a child would likely have abilities from both species. Maybe abilities that neither species has alone. Lyra stood up and walked to the window. Her glow was shifting between different colors, which Jake had learned meant she was thinking hard about something. My father would lose his mind, she said quietly. He spent years telling everyone that I'm worthless because I can't produce pure Zephyrian heirs. If he found out that I could have children, just not with our people ... He doesn't have to know, Jake said. Not yet. This is our choice to make. Dr. Parker nodded. I haven't told anyone else about this discovery. I want to discuss it with you first. Meanwhile, on the other side of the settlement, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Hayes was studying energy readings from his monitoring station. For weeks, he had been tracking unusual patterns coming from the area where Jake and Lyra lived. The readings didn't match any known human or Zephyrian technology. Ryan was a careful man who paid attention to details. These energy spikes were becoming stronger and more frequent. Something was happening, and he needed to find out what. He printed out the data and walked to his commander's office. Captain Ben Foster was a military man who trusted facts and worried about security threats. "Sir, I need to show you something," Ryan said, spreading the papers on Foster's desk. "These energy readings are coming from Captain Morrison's residential area." Foster studied the charts. "What kind of readings?" "Unknown. They don't match our databases for either human or Zephyrian energy signatures. There's something new." Foster frowned. "Could the aliens be testing some kind of weapon?" "I don't think so, sir. The patterns are too irregular, too organic. It's almost like they're biological rather than technological." "Keep monitoring it," Foster ordered, "and increase security around that area. If something dangerous is developing, I want to know about it immediately." Back on Zephyria, King Vorak sat in his crystal palace, listening to reports from his advisors. The war with the humans had stopped, but that didn't mean he trusted them. He was already planning ways to expand his empire once the humans became comfortable with the peace. "Your Majesty," one advisor said, "our sensors are detecting unusual energy patterns from the human settlement. They seem to be centered around where your daughter lives." King Vorak waved his hand dismissively. "Probably just the humans experimenting with our technology. They're like children playing with toys they don't understand. Should we investigate further? No, let them play. My worthless daughter and her human husband are no threat to anyone." The advisor bowed and left, but he made a note to continue monitoring the situation. Something about those energy readings bothered him. That evening, Jake and Lyra sat in their home, talking about Dr. Parker's discovery. The possibility of having a child together was both exciting and frightening. "What if Dr. Parker is wrong?" Lyra asked. "What if we try and nothing happens? I don't think I could handle that disappointment again." "What if she's right?" Jake countered. "What if we could have a child who represents the best of both our peoples?" Lyra's glow shifted to a warm golden color. "I've been having dreams lately. Strange dreams about the future. In them, I see a child who can do things that neither humans nor Zephyrians can do alone. A child who brings people together instead of driving them apart." "Dreams can be powerful things," Jake said, "especially for someone with your abilities. You really think we should try?" Jake took her hands in his. "I think we should do what feels right to us. Not what our governments want, not what our peoples expect, what we want." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. "I want to try. I want to see if we can create something beautiful together. Then we'll try." Outside their window, the energy readings that Ryan Hayes was monitoring spiked higher than ever before. The patterns were becoming more complex, more organized. Something was beginning to happen, something that would change everything. Dr. Parker, working late in her lab, noticed the same energy spikes on her equipment. She smiled to herself. She had seen similar patterns before in her research on human reproduction. These readings meant that Jake and Lyra had made their decision. In her files, she made a note to begin preparing for the most important medical case of her career. If her theories were correct, she was about to witness the birth of a new kind of being. A child who might hold the key to true peace between humans and Zephyrians, or a child who might be so powerful that both species would fear what they had created together. Time would tell which it would be. The energy readings continued to climb, painting invisible patterns in the air around Jake and Lyra's home. Patterns that looked almost like music, or like the mathematical equations that govern the birth of stars. Something extraordinary was beginning. 3 months had passed since Jake and Lyra made their decision. Dr. Parker met with them in secret every week, running tests and monitoring Lyra's condition. The news they had all hoped for finally came on a quiet Tuesday morning. "Congratulations," Dr. Parker said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Lyra, you're pregnant." Lyra's glow flickered between silver and gold, showing her mixed emotions of joy and fear. Jake squeezed her hand gently. "Are you sure?" Lyra asked. "Completely sure. But this isn't like any pregnancy I've ever monitored before." Dr. Parker pulled up her charts. "The energy readings from the developing child are incredible. It's showing characteristics from both human and Zephyrian genetics. But the power levels are far beyond what either species normally produces." Jake looked at the swirling patterns on the screen. Even to his untrained eyes, they looked complex and beautiful. "Is the baby healthy?" "More than healthy. The child appears to be developing perfectly, but with capabilities we've never seen before. Lyra, how do you feel?" "Different," Lyra said softly. "Stronger. My energy control has improved dramatically. Yesterday, I fixed Jake's broken computer without even touching it. I just looked at it and somehow knew exactly what was wrong and how to repair it." Dr. Parker nodded. "The pregnancy is enhancing your natural abilities. The child's energy is blending with yours, making you both more powerful." "We need to keep this secret as long as possible," Jake said. "If either government finds out too soon, they might try to take control of the situation." "Agreed," Dr. Parker said. "I'll continue monitoring you both privately, but we need to be careful. The energy signatures are getting stronger every day. Someone is going to notice eventually." That someone was Captain Ben Foster. He stood in his office, staring at the latest energy readings with growing alarm. The patterns coming from Jake Morrison's area were now 10 times stronger than when they first appeared. "Lieutenant Hayes," he called to his assistant. "I want a full security team positioned around Captain Morrison's residence. Something is happening there, and I need to know what it is." "Should we inform Captain Morrison, sir?" "No. This is now classified as a potential security threat. We observe and report only." Ryan Hayes felt uncomfortable with the order, but he followed it. Within hours, hidden sensors were placed around Jake and Lyra's home. The readings they collected were even more disturbing than Foster had expected. Meanwhile, on Zephyria, King Vorak was receiving his own troubling reports. His chief advisor, Lord Zaxxon, stood before the crystal throne with concern written across his glowing features. "Your Majesty, the energy disturbances from the human settlement have increased dramatically. Our long-range sensors are detecting power levels that rival our most advanced technology." King Vorak leaned forward. "What kind of power levels?" "Plea. Kind that could potentially threaten our military superiority, Your Majesty. We believe the humans may be developing some form of superweapon using energy patterns similar to our own." "Impossible. Humans don't have the knowledge to manipulate energy like we do." "Perhaps not alone," Lord Zaxxon said carefully. "But your daughter has been living among them for almost a year. She could have shared our secrets." For the first time, King Vorak looked worried instead of amused. "Send a spy to investigate. I want to know exactly what my worthless daughter and her human husband are doing." Back in the human settlement, Lyra was experiencing changes that amazed even her. As her pregnancy progressed, she began having vivid dreams that felt more like visions of possible futures. In some dreams, she saw their child as a bridge between species, helping humans and Zephyrians work together to explore new worlds and solve great problems. In others, she saw the child as a powerful being that both sides feared and tried to control, leading to even worse wars than before. "The dreams are getting stronger," she told Jake one evening. "Last night, I dreamed I could see the mathematical patterns that control space travel. When I woke up, I understood how to build engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years." Jake was both excited and concerned. "What else did you see?" "I saw our daughter, Jake. She was beautiful and brilliant and kind, but she was also incredibly powerful. More powerful than anyone from either of our species." "Our daughter?" Lyra smiled, her glow warming to a soft gold. "Dr. Parker confirmed it yesterday. We're having a girl." As the weeks passed, the changes in Lyra became impossible to hide. Her energy manipulation abilities had grown so strong that she could interface with any technology around her just by being near it. Human computers worked faster when she was in the room. Zephyrian crystal formations grew brighter in her presence. Captain Foster's surveillance team was collecting data that made no sense. The energy readings suggested that something with the power of a small star was developing in the Morrison residence. "Sir," Ryan Hayes reported, "I think we need to consider the possibility that this isn't a weapon. The energy patterns are too organic, too much like life signs." "Life signs with the power output of a fusion reactor?" Foster snapped. "That's impossible." "Maybe not impossible, sir. Maybe just unprecedented." Foster made a decision that would change everything. "I'm calling this into Earth Command. Whatever is happening here is beyond our ability to handle locally." The message reached Earth within hours. Within a day, orders came back that made Foster's blood run cold. A special science team was being sent to investigate immediately. They had full authority to take whatever action they deemed necessary to protect human interests. On Zephyria, King Vorak's spy returned with information that shattered the king's worldview. The spy knelt before the crystal throne, trembling with fear and excitement. "Your Majesty, Princess Lyra is with child." The throne room fell silent. King Vorak's energy crackled dangerously. "That's impossible. She is barren." "No, Your Majesty. She carries a hybrid child, half human, half Zephyrian. The energy readings we detected are coming from the unborn infant. The child possesses power levels that exceed anything in our historical records." King Vorak rose from his throne, his massive form blazing with blue-white energy. His laughter from months ago was completely gone, replaced by shock and rage. "My granddaughter," he whispered. "A hybrid with power greater than pure Zephyrian. Blood. What are your orders, Your Majesty?" King Vorak was quiet for a long moment, his mind racing through the implications. His worthless daughter, the one he had mocked and given away, was carrying what might be the most powerful being either species had ever produced. "Prepare my personal ship," he ordered. "I'm going to the human settlement myself." "Your Majesty, should we inform them of your arrival?" "No. I think it's time I met my son-in-law properly. And time I claimed my granddaughter for the Zephyrian Empire." As both human and Zephyrian forces began moving toward the small settlement where Jake and Lyra lived in peace, the couple remained unaware of the storm approaching them. Lyra sat in her crystal garden, one hand on her growing belly, feeling. Their daughter's strong heartbeat synchronized with her own. "She's going to be amazing," Lyra said softly. Jake sat beside her, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "She's going to change everything." Neither of them knew how right he was or how soon that change would come. The birth happened on a morning when 3 moons hung in the purple sky. Dr. Parker had been staying with Jake and Lyra for the past week, knowing the time was close. When Lyra's labor began, the energy readings around their home spiked so high that every piece of electronic equipment in the settlement flickered. "She's coming," Lyra gasped, her silver glow pulsing in rhythm with her contractions. Jake held her hand while Dr. Parker prepared for what might be the most important birth in galactic history. Outside, Captain Foster's surveillance team watched. Their instruments go crazy as waves of unknown energy poured out of the Morrison residence. 6 hours later, baby Emma Morrison entered the world with a cry that somehow harmonized with both human vocal patterns and Zephyrian energy frequencies. The moment she took her first breath, every electronic device in the settlement synchronized perfectly with every Zephyrian crystal formation in the area. "She's perfect," Dr. Parker whispered, holding the tiny infant. Emma looked mostly human, but her skin had a subtle silver shimmer, and her eyes were the deep purple of her mother's. When she moved her tiny hands, sparks of gentle energy danced between her fingers. "Let me hold her," Lyra said weakly but happily. The moment Emma touched her mother's skin, something amazing happened. The baby's energy merged with Lyra's, and suddenly Lyra could sense every electronic system in the settlement. More than that, she could improve them all simultaneously. Computers began running faster, communication systems became clearer, and power generators became more efficient. "What's happening?" Jake asked in wonder. "She's creating harmony," Dr. Parker said, studying her readings in amazement. "Emma isn't just combining human and Zephyrian abilities. She's making them work better together than either could alone." Outside, Captain Foster was dealing with chaos. Every piece of human technology was functioning at levels far beyond normal capacity. His communication systems were so clear he could hear transmissions from ships 3 star systems away. "Sir," Ryan Hayes reported, "something incredible is happening to our equipment. Everything is working perfectly. Better than perfectly." Before Foster could respond, alarms sounded throughout the settlement. 3 ships were approaching. 2 human vessels from Earth Command, and 1 massive Zephyrian royal cruiser. "This is it," Foster muttered. "Both sides are here." The ships landed within an hour of each other. From the human vessels came Admiral Patricia Stone, a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, accompanied by a team of scientists and soldiers. From the Zephyrian ship came King Vorak himself, towering and blazing with energy, flanked by his royal guards. Both parties marched toward Jake and Lyra's home with grim determination. Jake met them at his front door, still wearing clothes stained from helping with the birth. Behind him, the sounds of a crying baby could be heard. "Admiral Stone, Your Majesty," Jake said formally. "I assume you're here about my daughter." "Captain Morrison," Admiral Stone said coldly, "you have created a potential threat to human security without authorization. We're here to assess and contain that threat." King Vorak's voice boomed across the settlement. "That child carries royal Zephyrian blood. She belongs with her people, not among humans." "She belongs with her parents," Jake said firmly. "And we're not going anywhere." "You don't understand," Admiral Stone said. "Our readings show energy levels that could destabilize entire star systems. This child could be weaponized, or she could bring our peoples together in ways we never imagined," came a voice from behind Jake. Lyra appeared in the doorway, holding baby Emma. Even exhausted from childbirth, she glowed with quiet dignity. King Vorak stared at his daughter and granddaughter. For months, he had been preparing angry speeches about betrayal and family honor. But seeing Lyra healthy and happy, holding a child that sparkled with gentle energy, the words died in his throat. "Father," Lyra said simply, "meet your granddaughter, Emma." The baby chose that moment to open her purple eyes and look directly at her grandfather. King Vorak, who had faced armies and conquered worlds, felt his breath catch at the innocent wisdom in that tiny face. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Admiral Stone stepped forward impatiently. "This is not a social visit. We need to discuss the security implications." Her words were cut off as every piece of human technology in the area suddenly malfunctioned. Weapons wouldn't fire, communication devices went silent, and even their ship's engines shut down. But then Emma made a small cooing sound, and everything started working again. Not just working, but working better than before. The weapons were more accurate, the communications were clearer, and the engines hummed with perfect efficiency. She fixed everything, one of the human technicians said in amazement. All of it instantly. Dr. Parker emerged from the house with her medical scanner. "Admiral, Your Majesty, I think you need to understand what Emma really is. She's not a weapon. She's a bridge." She held up her readings. "Watch this." She activated a broken Zephyrian communication crystal and a damaged human tablet simultaneously. Both devices were completely non-functional. Emma reached out with her tiny hands, and gentle energy flowed from her fingers. The crystal began to glow, and the tablet screen lit up. But more than that, they began working together. The crystal's energy powered the tablet, while the tablet's processing capability enhanced the crystal's communication range. She doesn't just have abilities. From both species, Dr. Parker explained. She instinctively knows how to make different technologies work together in harmony. One of King Vorak's advisors whispered urgently in his ear, "Your Majesty, with abilities like this, she could revolutionize our entire empire." Admiral Stone was having similar thoughts. The strategic advantages of such capabilities would be enormous. "No," Jake said firmly. "Emma is not a tool for either of your governments to use. She's our daughter." King Vorak looked at his son-in-law for a long moment. The human was much smaller than any Zephyrian, but he stood without fear between his child and two of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. "You would defy both our peoples to protect her?" The king asked. "I would defy the universe itself to protect my family," Jake replied. Something in those words touched something deep in King Vorak's heart. For the first time in decades, he remembered what it felt like to love someone more than power or pride. "Admiral Stone," the king said slowly, "I believe we have been looking at this situation incorrectly." "What do you mean?" "We have been thinking like conquerors instead of grandparents." King Vorak knelt down until he was closer to Emma's level. "This child is not a weapon to be claimed. She is hope to be protected." Emma reached out and touched her grandfather's glowing finger. The moment their skin made contact, King Vorak felt something he had never experienced before. Perfect understanding. Through Emma's innocent touch, he could sense Jake's love for Lyra, Lyra's hopes for peace, and the baby's pure desire to bring harmony to everyone around her. Tears began flowing down the king's glowing cheeks. "I was so wrong," he whispered, "about everything." He stood and faced Admiral Stone. "This child will not be a weapon for either of our peoples, but she could be the beginning of something much better than war." "And what exactly are you proposing?" Admiral Stone asked suspiciously. "A real alliance. Not just a peace treaty, but a true partnership. Let Emma grow up as a symbol of what humans and Zephyrians can accomplish together." Jake and Lyra looked at each other, then at their daughter. Emma cooed softly and waved her tiny hands, sending sparkles of energy into the air that made everyone present feel calmer and more hopeful. "Emma will decide her own path when she's old enough," Jake said. "Until then, she stays with us. But if she chooses to help both our peoples understand each other better, we won't stop her." Admiral Stone holstered her weapon. "I suppose there are worse fates than having the most powerful being in the galaxy as humanity's friend instead of its enemy." King Vorak nodded solemnly. "From this day forward, any threat to Emma or her family is a threat to the Zephyrian throne itself." As the sun set over the settlement, two former enemies sat together in Jake and Lyra's garden, watching a baby play with toys made of both human technology and Zephyrian crystal. Emma giggled as her toys glowed and beeped in perfect harmony. "She's going to change everything," Lyra said softly. "She already has," King Vorak replied, his voice full of wonder at the granddaughter he had almost missed the chance to know.